Hello, YouTube family. I am Texas Beach Mom or Mama Robin, whichever you prefer. So welcome back, or if you're new here, just welcome. It is Watch Wednesday, so we're going to get into a 4-part video today. I started with the intention of wanting to break down Chris and Shanann's relationship, like break it into segments. And like I covered them dating, and then I covered them, the fact that they got married. And I was trying to look up information. I wanted information on what Chris and Shanann were like before Bella was born. And then I wanted information on what they were like after Bella, but before Celeste. And I wanted information on what the relationship was like after Celeste was born, before she got pregnant with Nico. You know, I was trying to break it up in sections, and I was trying to break it up in sections because I wanted details. I was trying to find details. And before I continue with this, I want to explain how I do my research. My first thing on research is always the discovery. Then if I can't find what I'm looking for in the discovery, then I go to Google and I start looking up information. And then if Google doesn't provide what I'm looking for, then I start watching other people's videos, not to copy what they're doing, but to gain information that I'm looking for so that I can put it in my own words. But that is research. That's basically how probably all people do it. They start with the discovery, which is, like I said, what I do. And then I go into Google and I start doing research that way. And then I go to other people's videos. Okay, so I was trying to get information about what their life was like between the time they got married, from the moment they said I do, to the day that Bella was born. Okay. Well, while I was searching, it occurred to me, because this person's videos kept popping up in my For You page, so to speak, my suggested videos or whatever. And it might be a channel that you all know. It might be a channel you don't know. It might be a channel you've heard of. Might be a channel you've not heard of. But the name of the channel is True Crime Rocket Science. It keeps popping up. So I went to his channel, and he has like 273 videos just on the Watts case alone. And the person that runs the channel, Nick, let's see if I get his name right, Nick Vanderleek, I think is his name. He's an author. He's written several books. So I'm like, okay. So this person, he's got a bunch of videos. He's written some books. So I start going through his playlist, and I start looking for videos that might pertain the information, or might pertain to or contain the information that I'm looking for about their relationship because that's where we left off at, was when they got married. So I was looking for something pertaining to or containing information about when they got married. So as I'm scrolling through his playlist, and again, there's 73 videos is what it was in his playlist just on Chris Watts alone. And he talks about how many books he's written and blah, 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 yakety schmackety. And what a great, oh my God. So anyway, as I'm scrolling through, I find this name of this video was called Chris Watts is a Narcissist. And then it goes, no, actually he isn't. And I'm like, okay, pump the brakes. This is not what I'm working on. But it made me curious, because I will stand firmly on the fact that I believe, based on everything I know, based on my personal experiences, based on every therapist that I've talked to, every psychologist, psychiatrist that I've talked to, because when I found out that my ex was a narcissist, I did research. I didn't just go, oh, he's a narcissist. Well, that's great. I did research because I wanted to know. I wanted to know what made him tick. I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to know why he behaves the way he does. So, based on everything I know about narcissism, based on my own research, based on everything I've heard a therapist say, psychiatrists say, psychologists say, body behavioral analysts say, a lot of people tend to agree, a lot of professionals tend to agree that Chris is a narcissist. But this video presents the possibility that Chris isn't. So it piqued my attention. I thought, okay, well, he's got a million videos out there and he's wrote a bunch of books. Maybe let's hear what he says. Well, first of all, this particular video is 2 hours long, and I watched it twice. And I can't even begin to describe how I feel about it. So what we're going to do is we are going to watch them together. Now, we're not going to watch a 2-hour video today. Don't worry, that's not my intention. My intention, though, is to have us watch it. I'll break it up in segments, and we'll watch it a little bit at a time, like so much of it, and we'll discuss. I'll discuss it, and we'll go on. So we're probably going to break this up in 4 or 5 segments because it is a 2-hour video. We're going to go through this because there's a lot said that made me just, well, you know what? We're just going to go on.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. In this episode, TCRS rubbishes the narcissism narrative. The framework of this episode comprises 3 areas. Number 1, step-by-step dealing with 3 expert pundits. Number 2, anchoring the narcissism narrative in the discovery. And thirdly, the TCRS assessment of the narcissism narrative and why it's not applicable to the Chris Watts case. Now, most, I think, have already encountered the...
Okay, so then, and again, I try to be very open-minded. I'm not saying that I'm an expert at being open-minded every time, but I do try. So I felt like if this was a person that's written several books, he doesn't feel like Chris is a narcissist, and I do, but he might be able to teach me something. He might be able to explain something to me that I didn't know. So I was willing to continue and listen to him.
Narcissism narrative discussed all over social media. The word narcissism comes up a lot in blog comments on Crime Rocket. It comes up a lot in social media. There are entire videos focused on the topic. And I've had to deal with a lot of people who just keep parroting this idea of narcissism. So in this video we're going to talk about some of the sources of this idea, and hopefully by the end of the video some minds will be rescued from the abyss. I'm sure most won't be, but we'll get to that in a second. I would like to provide short audio clips referencing some of that source material, but since this episode is about discrediting them, I'm not going to put this video up with a, with a risk of it being taken down. So I'm not going to provide any audio references in here. What I will do is I'll provide a link to the source material, other videos that deal with the narcissism narrative. I'm sure you've seen them before, but in case you haven't, you can refer to them. Some of them are quite short, but it might be good to refresh your memory on why perhaps you feel so strongly that the narcissism narrative is true and why you agreed with it to begin with. I've been itching to get to this part for a long time. I've really been irritated by the label. I often respond when people bring up words like narcissism, sociopath, psychopath, monster, evil. my sort of default response to that is I'm allergic to labels. True crime isn't that reductionist and it's not that simplistic, and it shouldn't be. As soon as you reduce a criminal to a word, you better make sure that word is appropriate, and in this case it isn't. And as soon as you do that, you misappropriate a word, you send an entire swathe of followers down the wrong rabbit hole, and that's what happened. That is what has happened here. You have an interesting scenario with the Watts case where people claim that they don't understand Chris Watts, they don't understand why he did what he did, they don't understand the motive, and so on and so on and so on. And then on the flip side of that coin, they say he's a narcissist. And they don't see the link between their inability to explain Chris Watts and how he thinks and his psychology and everything, and the narcissism narrative. They don't see a link between the two. Well, there is a link. You can't explain it because your narcissism narrative doesn't apply. That's why you can't. Don't take my word.
Well, hold on a minute there, Skippy. Narcissism, I disagree. I feel like it does apply, and I can link it. I can totally link it, but again, I'm just little old me, and I'm just sitting out here just making YouTube videos for fun. And by the way, this video is just for entertainment. But okay, Skippy, let's go.
Good for it though. Through the course of this video, we'll explain why it doesn't apply.
Okay.
And we'll use the discovery to explain that, and we'll take on some of the pundits firsthand and explain why some of their contentions don't make any sense when you think about it. And that's quite important. You do need to think about it. You need to think about it logically, scientifically, and sensibly, right?
Mm-hmm.
As much as I've been itching to deal with this, I realize one's got to deal with it in a, to some extent, sensitive way, but in another sense, a almost aggressive way. I think it is important to root out the loud mouths and the opinionated idiots who have been pushing this narrative.
So for every content creator that pushes out this content, you're simply implying that every single one of us is a loudmouth and an idiot. Okay. You know what? That's entirely possible that every single one of us that's pushing this narrative are loudmouths and idiots. But please, Skippy, please go on.
If this rubs you the wrong way, that's intentional.
Good.
There's some people who maybe aren't sure, and this is really for them. It's for intelligent people who have been kind of misled by listening to the media and listening to some of these YouTube videos.
Which is what you're making, a YouTube video.
I'm confident that this episode is going to rub the majority following this case, and perhaps even the majority listening to this video the wrong way. That's good. That's intentional. I want to drive a wedge between the discerning true crime followers and the mindless mob. And I want to be very clear. I want you to choose which side you're on. I want you to make a choice. And this video is going to be an educated choice where you decide to continue taking the red pill or the blue pill. But you are going to choose one pill or the other. And then you must stay there. You must stay there, and that's fine. So an expert like Dr. Phil tells you what is a narcissist, and then you head to your nearest echo chamber and repeat and recycle the nonsense. You know with absolute certainty that what is a narcissist because Dr. Phil told you. And Dr.
Well, hold on a minute there, Skippy. Let's not jump to conclusions on that either. Yes, Dr. Phil did say that Chris Watts is a narcissist. But I don't like Dr. Phil. I don't have any respect for him myself. So that's kind of not why I hung on to the narcissist thing. But for those who do like him, that's perfectly fine too. Some people think he's magnificent. I'm not one of those people. However, with that being said, I didn't just hear him say it and then just grab onto it. That's not how my mind works. That might be how other people's mind works, but that ain't how mine works. I didn't just go, oh, you know what? Dr. Phil said it, so it has to be right. No. But let's please, by all means, Skippy, let's continue.
Phil couldn't be wrong, could he? And it feels good, doesn't it? One word becomes your fortress of information. One word becomes your justification. One word becomes your sort of foolproof answer to this whole complicated saga. You've got your answer, and you're one of the few that are informed, except you're in the majority that are all saying the same thing. What you're really doing is you're transferring your own innocence and getting a satisfying sense of victimhood using this particular term. As I've said before, the Chris Watts case isn't about you. There was a time, by the way, before the murders where the Watts family went about their business irrespective of you, ignorant of you, and not influenced by you. There was a time when the Watts family were living in Colorado, also even living in North Carolina, and they didn't know that you existed. You also didn't know they existed. And they went about their lives with quiet confidence.
I give you that 100%. Right? They didn't know about us, we didn't know about them.
Afterwards, after the murders became high profile and they made it into the media, suddenly the Watts case is all about you. It's not. The Watts case isn't about...
You're right. Absolutely, Skippy. You are right. It is not about me. It is about them. And it's about the lives that were lost at the hand of one man who decided, for whatever his reason was, whether it was narcissism or something else, at this point, we'll call it something else because you're telling me he's not. Okay. So for whatever reason, Skippy, he decided to take out his entire fucking family. So you're right. It's not about us. It's about that family. It's about the lives that were lost. But let's continue, Skippy, because I'm sure you're getting to a point.
About you. The Watts case is about what happened to the Watts family.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
It's about those people who died.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
These aren't characters in a story. They aren't characters in some kind of fiction. They're real people. They're real people with...
Well, Skippy, thanks for letting us know that these aren't characters in a story. Thanks for letting the masses know that these are real people and this was a real life. Because before you explained that, we had no idea what you were talking about. We thought this was fiction. But so thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Do continue.
With distinct identities and identities distinct from yours and mine as well, right? Let them be who they are. Let them show who they are through their words and actions. Don't let who you are or your situation or your experience with an ex-husband or an ex-boyfriend or something from your past cloud what you are seeing in this case. In the majority of people following...
Okay, this is where we take issue, Skippy. Here's the problem. Yeah, I am the first to admit that I was married to a narcissist, and therefore that's where I get some of my information. However, it's not clouding my judgment. It spurred me to do my own research and to understand narcissism at its core. It spurred me to learn more about it, which I'm already getting the impression that you don't know anything about narcissism, but you're the expert, you write the books. So nothing's clouding my decision or my judgment. I am using life experiences, though, to dig into this deeper. And I have to tell you right now, Skippy, dude, I am going to tell you right now, this is kind of a weird way to go about getting people to listen to you. But hey, again, you're the expert. And the reason why I keep saying that is because you will tell us here in a little bit how you're the expert. You're going to tell us this. But okay, so, but no, I don't think it's clouding my judgment. As a matter of fact, I think what it does is because I can watch a video of Shanann's, I can read text messages that she sent to Chris. I can I can listen to her talk about her kids. I can listen to her talk about her in-laws. I can listen to her talk about her family. And it makes me go, oh, sis, I get what you're saying there. I totally agree with you, sis. I get it. Like, I've had those conversations with my spouse or with my kids or with my in-laws or about my in-laws or about my spouse. I've had those conversations. That's one reason why I feel so strongly about this, because I can watch Shanann, or I can watch Chris, or I can watch a video of Shanann's, or I can read text messages of hers talking to her friends or talking about Chris. And I can watch videos, and I can relate to her because I've been there. But let's keep going, Skippy.
In this case, that is exactly what is happening. You're not looking at the Chris Watts case as the Chris Watts case. You're looking at the Chris Watts case as projecting your own issues and your own...
No, sir, I disagree there. Some people might be doing that. I don't know what other people are doing, but I can tell you from what I'm doing, I'm not projecting my stuff. I'm hearing it, and I'm watching it, and I'm going, I know this feeling. I understand this feeling.
Attitudes to family and to relationships and to how men treat women and women treat men and control issues. You're projecting and transferring all of that into this case.
Okay.
And getting some kind of feeling of justification from that. That's not true crime rocket science. It's not even true crime. In true crime, you investigate the case. You don't voyeuristically experience these people as entertainment or characters in some kind of soapy.
Excuse me again. I don't know about you, sir, but I'm well aware. I'm fully aware of what I am fully aware of that. This is not just characters in a soapy, as you call it, or it's not characters in a book. I'm aware these were real people with real feelings and real lives. And I'm fully aware that these real people are now dead. But keep going, Skippy.
Right. True crime rocket science isn't here to win popularity contests.
Good.
Or do fake PR to get traffic or sell books. True crime rocket science is here to shine a light on cases that inexplicably people just fail to understand. Cases that inexplicably seem to defeat even the experts. The experts go on television and they pontificate about things like motive and so on, and then the audience then runs with that pontification. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these experts that go on television are experts on dozens of cases at the same time, and they don't spend a lot of time studying any one particular case.
I'll give you that.
They're too busy jumping,
I'll give you that.
about like butterflies from the one show to the next,
I'll give you that.
discussing the one to the other. And the difference between all of those people...
Now, for my own channel, I will give you what you're saying is mostly true. But for my own channel, I concentrate basically on two crimes. Chris Watts and the Lady Bird Lake mysteries. That's pretty much all I jump around on. And I do it on alternate days so that I'm not jumping around a lot. But I'll give you what you said. I'll give you what you said. That is probably mostly true. It's probably mostly true in most cases.
People, and there are hordes of them. There are hordes of experts, there are hordes of pundits, there are hordes of journalists, there are hordes of YouTubers, etc. The difference between them and someone who writes a narrative is that someone who writes a narrative literally spends an entire day studying one particular case, and then the next day continue studying that particular case, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and then you...
Okay, hold on a minute, Skippy. Let's stop with that again. I will back up. There are so many YouTube channels out there, and I can guarantee you I probably only have watched maybe a third of what's actually out there, okay? But from the third I've witnessed, Do not sit here and tell me, Skippy, that these people that create documents, they create hour long, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour long videos. Don't tell me these people did not research this. That's what these people do. Just because they didn't write a book about it does not mean that they did not spend their time researching it. There are YouTubers out there or content creators or what have you that have spent hours and days and weeks researching it. There are people out there that have spent years on this one case, and they may dedicate, lots of time to it. They may hop on other cases for a little while to kind of get a break from it because this case gets to be a lot. But do not put down those people just because they haven't written a book, because that's the feeling, that's the vibe I'm getting from you. But continue, Skippy.
Eventually write a book, and you write hundreds of blogs all about one case. And over a period of a year, maybe you've written 9 books and again, hundreds and hundreds of blogs. What's the difference between that particular methodology and everyone else? Everyone else is, during the same period, jumping to lots of different cases. Oh, that case has caught my attention. I think he's a sociopath. Oh, that case, that's really interesting. I think he's a narcissist. What differentiates True Crime Rocket Science from these others is the time spent studying.
Again, Skippy, I can vouch for a lot of us. We spent a lot of time on this one case. Some of us have spent years on this one case. Again, there are channels that do bounce around to other crimes because they need a break from it, because this gets to be a lot. But don't discount the ones that have spent hours making videos and documentaries, and they've done research, and dear God, there are people that have spent so much time on this case, but you're going to say that because you wrote a book or someone else writes a book that you're better at this case than we are because we don't spend as much time on it? That there, sir, sounds like to me that you're full of shit. But I could be wrong, so I digress. Let's go, Skippy.
Meticulously and systematically studying these cases. And over a long period of time, you become an expert at one case. And after a long period of time, you then move to another case. And then you notice intertextuality between the two. And the bottom line with what we're trying to do is create an authentic narrative. George Orwell once wrote, "In times of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act." George Orwell is the author of Animal Farm. Not sure who of you have read Animal Farm, but it's sort of a story where most of the animals are deceived, right?
Right.
Animal Farm is social media in the world right now.
Oh.
We are in times of universal deceit.
We are,
and
to a point.
Telling the truth is a revolutionary act
It
right
is.
now. In terms of the Chris Watts case, there are a lot of farm animals following this case.
Oh, so
And
we're all a bunch of farm animals.
TCRS
Got
is
it.
for a more intelligent audience. There are intelligent people who believe it.
Okay, so what you just said, and if I'm wrong, if I've misunderstood this in any way, shape, or form, I apologize. But what I just heard, and again, I could be wrong, what I just think I heard you say was that your group of people, the people that watch you, are more intelligent than the rest of us because they watch you. That's what I thought I heard. That's a way to... that's a good one. Keep going, Skippy.
In the narcissism myth. They're university-educated people who believe in the narcissism myth. And so what we're going to try and do in this episode is...
Hold on. Did I just hear you call...
I'm not really trying to appeal to the dummies and the idiots. I'm trying to appeal to the smarter people who can think for themselves and who can take a hypothesis and consider it. And I'm trying to get them to think about something in a different way.
Okay. So you want us to be open-minded?
It's obviously understandable that not
Even though you
everyone
just implied
has
that we're both
the amount
dummies.
of time to
Got it.
study a case or write about a case as much as I have. And so that's a service I provide. And,
okay. Well, thank you for your
obviously,
service, Skippy.
For the first time in some people's cases, you're getting an expert view of the Watts case. And when I say expert, I simply mean a view based on an extended time studying this case, more than anybody else.
No, that's not true
I
either.
think I can say that with confidence.
Well, you can say that with confidence if you want, Skippy, but you cannot discount the people that have spent hours, weeks, months, years talking about this case, that have done extreme research, that have paid money in some cases to get photographs, to look at things, to discuss it. That's why we have live streams so people can discuss it with us, so we can all put on our thinking caps. You know, us dummies can put on our thinking caps, right? And we can all work together. That's okay. You're the expert. All right. You have written more books, but I refuse to let you discount all us YouTubers, content creators, who have spent hours, days, weeks, months, years studying this case, because you can write books about it, and we chose to do documentaries or live streams or just collect. Just hold on, no. Go ahead, Skippy.
Is that I've covered this case more than anybody else, including the investigators.
Oh, so you're okay. Keep going.
Including the lawyers, including any other media reporter. Which means you can sort of pick off the most important details almost off the top of one's head, because you've got such a voluminous understanding of the case that you can just, it's like off the top of your head. And so let's look at the references to the word narcissism in the discovery documents. Now, I'm not sure whether people have ever thought about that. You know, have you thought about what do the people in this case themselves say about narcissism? Isn't that maybe a good place to start, to anchor the narrative, to root the narrative? What do the people in the Watts case say about this whole narcissism thing? Right? So if we go to page 606 of the discovery documents, you have Chris's father, during an interrogation, saying that he believed that Chris's mother believed Shanann was unstable, a narcissist, and bipolar. That's the first of the two references. Now let's look at that scenario just for a few moments on its own terms. Ronnie isn't saying Shanann is a narcissist. Chris Watts isn't saying Shanann is a narcissist. Right?
Right.
You don't even have them saying on their own kind of platform to the police, I think this person's a narcissist, right? You don't even have that. What you have is a scenario where Chris Watts is facing a serious charge. The scenario has been presented to him that maybe Shanann killed the children. Chris Watts has mischievously taken that bait, and he's basically lied to his father and the police, saying, yes, Shanann did do this, right? And you say, well, what's the narcissism in that? Yeah, it's self-preservation. Is that narcissism? Or would anybody try and find a way not to spend the rest of their lives in jail? I'm talking about anybody would try to preserve their survival and their happiness. Is that narcissism?
No, not really.
If we deal with it on its own terms, we see that what's actually happening here is it's Chris's mother who believed Shanann was a narcissist.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And we know where that sort of came from. We know there's a conflagration between Cindy Watts and Shanann Watts, right?
Right.
We know there was a kind of a violent verbal altercation between Chris's mother and Shanann.
Absolutely.
And obviously, when Shanann left, Cindy would have said something to her husband about what she thought of Shanann. And one of the name-calling words would be that Shanann was unstable, that Shanann is a narcissist, that Shanann is bipolar, whatever. And I think that's quite important to bear in mind here, is that this whole idea of name calling. You don't like someone, someone sort of insists on their way, and you call them a narcissist, right?
No. That's
The
not
second
correct.
reference is
Not
on
for me.
page 631 of the Discovery documents, and this time it's Shanann using the word, right? And in August, on the 5th of August, roughly a month after Nutgate, Shanann, I believe, is communicating with Cassie Rosenberg, and in the message to her, she says she won't change a thing about herself. So it's kind of in a situation where Shanann's talking about Nutgate and difficulties with her husband, and she's basically saying to her friend, she's not going to change a thing. She thinks of herself as a saint for not telling his mother
I kind of get it.
that she's a narcissist.
But I don't think she means the literal word
and
saint.
She just said that they were done and never coming back. So Shanann's sort of telling Cassie that she will not change anything about herself, and
She's
she
angry.
thinks of herself as a saint, and especially because she didn't tell Cindy that she's a narcissist, stupid bitch, and blah 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 blah. So here is Shanann directly telling one of her friends what she thinks of Chris Watts' mother. And so you have a situation where Cindy's calling Shanann a narcissist, and Shanann's calling Cindy a narcissist, and they're both doing it behind one another's backs. So you don't have a case where, as far as we know, you don't have a case where either of them are saying, I don't like you, you're a narcissist. Both of them are doing it indirectly, right, to someone else.
Because they're not getting along. I mean, it might be childlike, but it is what it is.
And those are the only references in the Discovery documents. There's nothing about that from Chris Watts. There's nothing about that from Nicole Kessinger. There's nothing about that from any of the other people. The only other term that starts to go into that area of psychology, if you want to put it that way, is OCD. And we know that Shanann owned that term. We know that her parents thought of it that way. We know her husband thought of her that way.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about psychology in a way that's grounded in the fabric of this case, and talk about obsessive compulsive disorder, and talk about what impact that may have had. In any event, that's not what we're going to do here. We will touch on it again towards the end of this episode. But this is about debunking the whole narcissism nonsense. And so the bottom line is it's referred to twice in the Discovery, and you can see the emotionally charged scenario in which it comes up. It's someone's very unhappy with someone else, and so the other person's a narcissist. What you actually have is two people calling each other a narcissist. Which one is the narcissist? Maybe they're both narcissists, maybe neither are. But there's something kind of silly and unscientific about these references, right? It's two women that are upset with each other, calling each other names. That's basically the bottom line. And I think that same childishness extends to the people pontificating about this case, calling Chris Watts a narcissist. It's just kindergarten 101.
I'm sorry, this is where we draw the line. Skippy, this is where I stop for a minute. When Shanann and Cindy are bitching to their whoever about each other, yes, they're throwing out the word narcissist. Shanann thinks that Cindy was a narcissist, and I do too. Cindy thinks Shanann was a narcissist. I don't agree with that. Now, I've said before that I am not Shanann's #1 fan. There's times I've said that I don't agree with a lot of things she did. But I understand why she did them. I don't agree with them. You can understand why they do something and not agree with them. But back to what I was saying. She was referring to Cindy as being a narcissist, and I kind of think she wasn't. That's why Chris ended up the way he did. But I could be wrong about that. I don't know Cindy. I just know a little bit I've seen. And I don't believe that Shanann was either. So you're right. It's hair pulling. It's name calling and hair pulling and stuff, essentially. But here's the problem with Chris. Chris does several things that by textbook define him as a narcissist. So it's not phooey, but keep going, Skippy.
Psychological analysis. It's not rocket science by any stretch. It's not even beginning to understand these people. But it is the beginning of misunderstanding them. Now, where did this come from? Where did this false narrative come from? Let's start with number one, Steve Wren, the Deputy District Attorney for Weld County. Now, definitely didn't start with him, but he was one of the figureheads who said the following. He said, "I do agree that this crime can only be committed by a sociopath. There's no other possible explanation." And this is something that Steve Wren said during the documentary Family Man, Family Murderer. Mm-hmm. And that came out relatively recently, so it's obviously not Wren who started this term, and he doesn't even use the term narcissist, he uses the term sociopath. That's another kettle of fish altogether. Sociopathy I don't think applies either, but it's interesting that he's used this term. It also sounds as if he's been fed the term by someone. So he says, "I do agree that this crime can only be committed by a sociopath." Well, who's he agreeing with? Someone said to him something, and then he's
I agree.
So
and I don't agree that Chris is a sociopath.
The term,
so.
And he's acquiescing to that term. It's interesting also that Wren says there's no other possible explanation. And I find that interesting because he's in a unique position where he was there when Watts was interrogated. He talks about how frustrated he was that they couldn't get to the truth. He was in the thick of things. And so if there's anyone who should know this case back to front and backwards and forwards, it's him. And then he says, well, there's no other explanation for why this crime happened except that Watts is a sociopath. It would be very useful, I think, to test Watts for that. But True Crime Rocket Science will be the first to say there are explanations. And where Steve Wren says there's no other possible explanation, actually there are quite a few possible explanations.
Okay.
I don't want to conflate the idea that there are quite a few with the idea that, well, there are a few possibilities, we're not quite sure which. There's one explanation that explains everything very, very well. And just as Wren is confident to say there's definitely no other possible explanation, I don't want to be that confident to say there absolutely is an explanation. I think it's important to stay a little bit humble and modest and say, well, maybe we don't know everything here. Maybe there's something else that could enhance our knowledge. So when I say there is a specific explanation, it's based on what we think we know. I don't think one can ever say we absolutely know everything. I think the biggest culprit in spreading the narcissism narrative is Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil sort of prides himself on being a celebrity psychologist, and so people get their psychobabble from him.
Psychobabble.
I'm a fan of Dr. Phil. I thought he was great on Oprah and Tell It Like It Is, Dr. Phil, etc. And he's an intelligent guy, and he often makes sense, right? In terms of this case, Dr. Phil has said that you can't make sense out of nonsense. He's basically saying that yes, this case there's no explanation for this case, which I disagree with. And he's also a major proponent that Chris Watts, if not the most major proponent of the fallacy that Chris Watts is a malignant narcissist and a narcissist. Dr. Phil was one of the first to sort of assess Chris Watts' behavior and showed all the whole lie spotting things and said, well, a narcissist can only see things from his perspective, and this is why Chris Watts made so many dumb mistakes. In any event, we'll deal with Dr. Phil in a moment in more detail, but the whole narcissism narrative amongst the masses, I believe, comes from him.
We're going to stop you right there, Skippy. First of all, as I said already, I'm not a fan of Dr. Phil's, so I typically don't agree with him, but I do agree with him on this. Whereas apparently, our book writer, our author, YouTuber, whatever, he disagrees with him, which is fine. He has that right. He has every right to disagree, just like I have every right to agree. People watching this or hearing his video, if you agree with him, great. And if you don't, fine. I'm just presenting this from my perspective. I find him irritating. I have to be honest. And I know anybody that knows me at all or watched my videos could tell I found him irritating. Because to me, he already comes across as pompous and arrogant. That because he writes books, he's an expert. But because we don't write books, we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. So I'm not just standing up for myself. I'm standing up for every true crime YouTuber, whether I agree with them or not, that has spent, like I said, minutes, hours, weeks, days, months, years working on this case. Okay? So I'm not just backing just myself. I'm backing everybody, whether I agree with them or not, that has spent a lot of time working on this, because apparently, according to him, and this is just the vibe I'm getting, I could be way off on this. And if I am, or you disagree with me, I'm sure you'll tell me. That's not a problem. That's kind of why we do these. But in my opinion, he comes across as very arrogant. And that he's smarter than the rest of us. And if you watch him and you listen to him and you agree with him, then you're smart for doing it. But if you don't, you're mindless sheep. So, like I said, right off the top, he's already kind of roasted me the wrong way. But again, this is just a fourth of his video. Okay, we're only a fourth of the way through his 2-hour video here. So I disagree with him. If you want to watch this video on your own, go to his channel. Watch anything you want to watch. I recommend you do. Maybe you like what he's saying. In my opinion, he's kind of an ass. But that is just my opinion. And my opinion, hold on. Duchess, stop! I'm sorry. There was a knock on the door next. My screen door's open because we're at a temperature here in my area, at least, where it's not hot enough to have the air on, but it's not cold enough to have the heat on. So I've got the front door open, screen door, and my dog, Duchess, yeah, look at the camera. You're on candid camera, honey. Duchess and Destiny thought that she heard somebody at our door. So she was going to protect me from the people knocking on somebody else's door. And now, as I was saying, I think he's arrogant. I think he's pompous. I got frustrated with the fact that he thinks because he wrote a book, or several books, or whatever, that he's an expert, and the people that didn't write books are not experts. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to leave it right here today. I'm sure I'll hear from you in the comments. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. If it's your anniversary, happy anniversary. I'm sorry, I was looking out my door and I shouldn't be. I want everybody to take care of yourselves and each other. Make good decisions. Please, please, please make good decisions. Anyway, that's all we're going to do for today. I love y'all. Subscribe, like, ring the bell, share, all that shit. Have a happy, happy day, and I will hopefully see you guys Friday night.